Hey, good morning. Ben here with Studio on the Lake. This is wishful thinking, but we're not too far away, a week or two, where the trees start coming out, the water starts coming out, and the loons are back. So this is the long-awaited from you. I said I was going to talk about handpiece and tear it apart. Here's my carving station, and people were asking where to get that Ultima 2 from, and that's PJL Enterprises over in Minnesota. Well, I talked to him a week or two ago, and he's not making the power carver, the hand pieces anymore. This is what I like to run. You saw two of them sitting there, and this is what he used to make. I bought one 22, 24 years ago, somewhere in that time frame, and that's the black hand piece that I use. And then a couple of years ago, my wife bought me a second one, and I like the two. I run a 3/32 collet in one and a eighth-inch collet in the other. This happens to be a combination. Has a wood burner on the left side. He is still in the micro carver on the right side. He is still doing the wood burners. I really like the pens. The pens are nice and thin. They've got resin. It's a permanent tip. One of these days I'll get around to that. But that's a dual that he's still making. He's making a single, and you can buy those. In fact, I gave information to someone on the channel that the other day. This would be a single micro carver, and he doesn't make those anymore. So what are you going to do? Well, you got the winter, and you're thinking about it. Everybody knows that watches the channel that I bought a cheap Chinese one because the hand pieces looked the same to me. And it looked to me like people were all buying the same hand piece from China or Korea, and selling them at various different prices. This is the same one. I paid $80 for the one that I tore apart. You look at the price range across there, 50 to 168 bucks, depending on who you sell it. And some of those guys are representing on Amazon. Some of them are selling through Carver Supplies, and of course you've got eBay, which has always been a gamble. But now it appears that Amazon is a gamble too, because a seller will list that. They're rebranding them. Here's a guess wine that has the same handpiece, so I'm going to have to assume that it has the same controller. And here's the controller that you can get. That's the same one, and I saw how cheap that was. And then here's the exact same handpiece that came with that for 80 bucks that you can get for 50, and that's about what I paid for it. It was 77. Here's the same one, rebranded Eco Torque, 195. Here's where the money shot comes in. There are the pieces, those are the pieces, the parts diagram. You can get all the pieces and parts to this. The one that I tore apart, and I'm tearing apart in this one, is missing a couple of washers up in the thing, and that's why the quick release collet is so loose. And I think this is just talking about microcarvers. I think a microcarver personally should have a quick release. And there's the name brand on that. Now, Shi Yang makes 10 different hand pieces, give or take, but they're relatively the same. The model numbers are a little bit different. These are made in China, I believe. Korea also makes some, and if I had to make a gander or an educated guess, I would say the ones from Korea probably have a higher quality control. This one, when I tore it apart and I did the initial review of the Marathon 3, I didn't like it because the collets were messed up and they were cheap. So you pull off the nose piece, and out comes the mechanism in the front. It's got a couple bearings on it and a bunch of sleeves, and everything in there appears to be kind of sloppy. You can I didn't go ahead and pull circlips and take all these individual bearings and spacers off, but it has a bearing on the front, a bearing on the back end there, and then that plastic piece, you could stick a screwdriver up in there and take the collet out. This one that came with a really cheap collet, and you can buy better collets for $3 to $5 and put them in there. That would be my complaint on this particular piece here. So they're making them in mass quantity. They're calling them various different things. This is the quick release cam that sits up in there, and this thing is missing a couple of washers right before the nose piece and the spring. There's two washers missing, which is why it's loose. Here's a series of a spacer with a little bearing set that allows that quick release to slide back and forth. So quality control, not real good on this. This handpiece is sold under numerous different things, but you can tear them apart. You can get better pieces and parts in there. If you got a little machine shop like I got in the corner over there, you could actually turn this into something pretty nice. You can even replace the bearings. There's people that would sell those. So the ass end of it part is the motor. This one is brushed, has brushes in it. They always send you new brushes with it. You need to break those in a little bit if you change them, but here's how they come out. They've got 2 screws on the side, and then the brush will just pop right out of there. They're interchangeable. Poof, a brush. And like I said, they'll send these to you. That's the part that will wear out probably about the same time the bearings wear out. The rest of the parts and pieces in there. My original handpiece I sent back to PJL, and he put new bearings in it and new brushes. He used to take these handpieces when he got them, and he would change the spring mechanism in the back there and put for the you see the spring on the back end of those brushes. He would change those out with a leaf spring, $2 leaf spring, which helped make the pieces. So the cords are all pretty much interchangeable now. That little piece that's stuck on the cord goes underneath the. Here's one still stuck in here. You see the shiny part on the left-hand side there? Those help get the contact going. So if your handpiece isn't working right, it's probably in one of these pieces here or the brushes as far as power going to it. I just pulled the other clip that helps off of that one. So now we've got the motor portion of this. As you look through these different handpieces online, you'll go insane because there's 1,000 of them. And primarily they're in 2 parts, the handpiece motor on the ass end and then the drive mechanism on the front. And the parts and pieces that are in the middle there are the quality control, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. This one is brushed. I think the brushless ones would be a little bit better, but they really jump up in price. I mean, they're 2/3 more for a brushless handpiece than they are for one that's brushed. And for $5, you can change a lot of brushes over the years if you're semi-handy. Now, so here's the motor part of it, and I hadn't torn this apart, and it was a little bit tough. It's got 2 screws that hold this portion together. You pull those 2 screws, and then the motor came out. You see that little piece clip out there? It's a little blue piece of plastic. I'm going to pick that up in a minute. But the bearing mount sits, and the rear of the motor sits in the back of that plastic cap. That blue piece, I'm not sure where that came from. I think that came off the pliers. I couldn't find any place that it would have come from, or even a color match in the motor there. So we've pulled the end cap off of that, which holds the brushes. And this is a standard motor. If you know anything about motors, it's an induction motor. It has magnets inside of this casing right here. Has a bearing mount for the front of it, and then it has the commutator, and no big secrets here. You have a washer and then a spring washer, which allows the power to transmit through that, and that spins around freely. So we're not going to go into motor basics, but this has got a bearing on either end of it, and those are replaceable. They're really not on there that tight, so they're not press fit. And I'm just throwing the copper washers on there that allow the power to go back to the motor portion. So there it is. That's the way those things are tore apart. You can get the diagrams. You can get the parts and pieces. Like I said, this one was missing a washer and a spacer, and brand new from the factory. So quality control. If it's not what you wanted, you might want to tear it apart and look at it. Again, look at the difference in prices, and these things can go up in one can be 50, one can be 200, one can be I've seen them as high as 289 for the same deal, and just has to do with the seller. The seller can buy these from China or Korea in bulk, and you see that this is the exact same handpiece with a different price on it. You can get the controller. That's the price of the controller by itself. And these are ones with brushes. Okay, so Look at the difference in there. New dental handpiece, 1671. I don't know what you get. And here's the one, same exact thing. They rebranded it, Eco Torque 199. Same thing, 259, down from 336. What a deal. So where's the guy supposed to go? You're a beginner on this sort of thing. You could get away with one of these the cheaper ones, under $100 to see if you like it. And then you're going to want to go to somewhere in the middle. Ram makes some, various different companies. And then you want to go, in my case, as I carve a lot, something along these lines. A little bit bigger. This would be brushless, and that's going to be in the 650, 700. Now, this place sells several different ones, but they're a dental repair, and they actually warranty the pieces. So you get the same product. Here's an Amazon that a lot of people are using, robbing those guys. And you're looking at $200 for open beginner level. So I'd say 200 to 400 to 600. This would be a mid-range that I would probably look at. It is brushless, and the controllers are not interchangeable between the brushless and the brushed ones. I would be interested in something like this, which has the two hand pieces, but now we're talking 700, and that's a lot. Really, this is probably where you ought to end up, somewhere in this range here. You can build your own. Here's a circuit board that controls, has all the pieces and parts for $40. Another hand piece for $40. You're into it for $80. Put it in your own case. That's what I would prefer, the combo. He's no longer making those, although he is still making the burners. Here's something interesting I came across. This is a combo, and this is from a dental supply. It has the micromotor on the left and the wood burner, or in this case they call it a cutting knife, just like this, a trimming knife on the right. But it looks like the same kind of hand pieces that I like, and I'm assuming the same ones from PJL would work. And there's the combo. So I think I would be interested in something like that. That gets me a burner and a carver at the same. And again, I'm sure they're the same parts and pieces through all of them. And it's just what someone's put together. So they're taking these components from Korea and China and branding them themselves. And I'm not going to talk about Fordham or any of these folks in there. I'll save that for another one. So there is a professional, $700 to $1,500. There's the glass wine rebranded, the same one I've got. I think this would be the way to go if you're really into this and going to do it, or something along these lines here, if you're brave and want to try something out that's not in there. But again, beginner level, you can get one for under 100. See if you like it. The parts are going to wear out and you need to change some pieces. 200 to 400 for mid-range. 400 to 800 for one that is a professional, and then you can go up from there and you'll end up with something like this. So, hey, here's a quick review, and I'll put some more out there. Thanks a lot. This has been Ben with Studio on the Lake.